Hello, everybody. Hello, City Voices. Hello, network, peer network. My name's Issa Ibrahim, and like all of us, I'm a survivor. Like all of us here, even those without a psych sphere in their lives, we're all survivors. Survivors of this crazy world that's getting crazier by the day. And I just want to tell you a little bit about myself. Let me see if I can share screen. Can I share screen, Dan? Is that possible? Okay, let me try that. All righty. I'm just gonna do a little small presentation. I wasn't sure about the presentation, but since I'm an artist and I speak visually, I figured I'd introduce myself through a visual medium. I was born into a household. I was bohemian, and there were artists, there were writers, there were actors, there were musicians. It was a whole happening. And my parents were kind of like beatniks in the 50s and gave birth to hippies in the 60s with my sisters. And I came along in 1965 and was born into this household that was alive and electric and full of marijuana. And it was benign mostly, except for the fact that I always growing up in the 70s, especially in the early 70s when President Nixon made it like public enemy drug number one. I was always conscious, even as a small child, that it was illegal. And so I always feared whenever my parents and my family smoked that they'd get arrested, that they'd be taken away from me, and I'd be left to go for who knows what, go to a group home or whatever. So I always kind of had an ambivalent kind of love-hate relationship with marijuana. So I didn't smoke it or imbibe at all until I was 22 and my father passed away from cancer. And then I was vulnerable. So my older brother saw that I wasn't handling it very well. And he said, "Here, try this, you'll feel better." And I tried it and I did feel better. It immediately alleviated temporarily the pain of the grief I was feeling from my father's death, because it happened so quickly within like six months or so. It's just that I didn't know that I had a predisposition for addiction. And I know a lot of people, especially now that it's legal, if you were to say you could get addicted to pot, people would laugh at you, But no, you can get addicted, or at least I got addicted. And not only did I get addicted, but within 2 years, I developed schizophrenia. I became delusional, paranoid, beyond the usual paranoia, and started suffering severe mental illness. And as a result, in 1990, during probably the worst of my psychotic break, I believed the world was at an end, and there were evil forces at play, and my life was at stake. And worst of all, the person who I was left to live with, my mother, who I was in a home with, I believe she was a witch or possessed by some evil forces. So in an attempt to exorcise the evil out of her, I accidentally took her life. And that haunts me to this day, some 30 some odd years later. But anyways, I took my brother's car in an attempt to find her soul, because she had a house in Canada. She lived here in New York with us in Queens, where I'm at, but she also had a place in Canada. So after the incident happened, I immediately took my brother's car and drove towards Canada to try to reunite with her soul and redress this horrible thing that had happened. And I ended up crashing the car up in Nyack, New York. Was rescued from a burning car from the fire department, and sent, which was right up the road, to Rockland Psychiatric Center, where I was stabilized and on medication. And after a week of medication intake, I came to enough of a semblance of sanity to realize, oh my God, I did something horrible. I think I did something terrible. I've got to tell somebody. So I found a social worker and I said, you know, check out this address. I think my mother, I think I hurt my mother. I think I may have killed my mother. And they checked it out. And within a couple of days, the detectives came and interviewed me. And a couple of days after that, I was arrested. And then I was put through the system, sent from there to Kings County Hospital for an evaluation. And sent through the system, sent to Rikers Island for like a year, awaiting trial. And it was after several evaluations that the Queens County District Attorney discovered that, yeah, he did this horrible thing, but he didn't mean to do it, but we've got to do something with this guy. You know, we've got to do something. So they offered me involuntary manslaughter charge, a plea of involuntary manslaughter, or to go to a hospital, to take the insanity plea, because they knew that I was insane at the time of the crime and still kind of crazy at the time of the trial. And they said, look, we'll send you to a hospital. We don't know when you'll get out, but you may get the help there that you need. And I really felt that that was probably the best option for me. I didn't want to go to prison. I wasn't a criminal. I'd never been in trouble before in my life. I always went to school. I always went to work. So I opted for the hospital. And although the involuntary manslaughter plea carried about 8 years, 8 to 10 years, maybe 8 with good behavior, it wasn't about the time. It wasn't about how little time I could do. It was about finding out what the hell happened to me. What the hell was that? And how can I prevent that from ever happening again? So I opted for the hospital. Little did I realize that going to a state mental hospital, like that old movie, it's a snake pit. It's a snake pit. And it wasn't long before I was offered drugs, and I don't mean the psychiatric kind, by the staff. It wasn't long before some of the female staff and the male staff who were in that proclivity were offering themselves sexually to me. And it wasn't long before I started partaking in all of that just to survive that place. The good thing, though, is that I was always an artist. My mother always cultivated my artistic leanings, and she sent me to art school before I got sick. So when I was in the hospital, I started painting again. I started using these paintings I did as sort of breadcrumbs to remind myself who I was, where I came from with my mother's connection to me as an artist, because she was an artist, and also to kind of figure out what happened to me by just doing vignettes of what the scene was at the time of the crime and at the time of this mental disturbance that I went through. So this was one of the first paintings I did, The Man Who Would Be King, in 1991. And this shows the bedroom that I was sleeping in, and my easel, my father's instruments, and my paintbrushes kind of crucified by my instruments, you know, believing that I was Christ, believing that I was some sort of Messiah or Christ-like figure in this deluded state, which led to this horrible disturbance. And then when I came to even more clarity and more sanity, I kind of realized, oh my God, this horrible thing, this horrible stain that I have on myself, if I were to ever get out, this is what I imagined I'd have to live like. You know, the headline from the New York Daily News kind of playing in my mind and playing in society's mind, mom killed, family asked why, and me kind of running and putting up my collar and wearing and just kind of running from this horrible thing that I did for the rest of my life. And I also did a lot of paintings at the time of the environment, and recognizing that in the hospital that I was in, Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, is mostly Black and brown people, with a smattering of poor whites who had no agency, you know, and were lost in the sauce. But it was just, I just kind of imagined and saw us chained, our minds chained together by the medication, chained and locked and closed in, and the colors of the subduing colors of the mental hospital, the off pinks and the muted greens and the different muted colors that they would use to subdue while we have us subdued in our minds. And as time progressed, I kind of saw myself as a man in a box, you know, unable to grow, a man-child in arrested development, you know. And I didn't want it to be a pity party, because I always knew that my family had abandoned me by this point, and I totally understood why. And I didn't blame them at all, even though it hurt. But I understood, because if I were as ignorant as I was back then to mental illness, as they chose to be about mental illness and just be wrapped up in the anger of, which is understandable, but they knew nothing about mental illness. And I'd be the same way, if not for the fact that I understood mental illness a little bit more as time progressed. So, and then as time progressed, I understood it more. And in the paintings I was drawing, I discovered that it's like I was torturing myself, strangling myself in guilt and in shame and in remorse, but also with this hand here, chronicling it, writing it down, painting it, painting while torturing, you know, and burning on the inside. Here, this fire burning on the inside, the anger of what happened to me, what happened to my mom, that my family left me and left me in there, and all the injustice that I saw in the institution, the brutality, the wanton sex, the rampant drugs, the brutality, and being in that place and suffering and feeling I deserved to suffer. I deserved every bit of it, but still writing it down, painting it, chronicling it. And then this one, Autopsy of the Damned, this is a self-portrait I did where even the scalpel has my name on it here, Ibrahim. And I do an autopsy of myself because I felt like I was a zombie. I felt like I was damned and dead and lost in the system. And as I cut myself open, I discovered there's nothing inside. There's an emptiness. There's a void. You know, I lost my mom. I was a drug addict. I lost my family. I was the worst of the worst. And there was nothing inside, nothing to fortify myself, nothing to go on. And it was also around that time that what happens to a lot of people who are psychiatric survivors is that they go through a period of not trusting the meds, not trusting their doctor. Not to say you should always be a wise consumer, but at the same time, I was in a place where it was like, take the meds or shut up, you know, or maybe even take the meds and shut up, but take the meds. There was never any discussion. And I reached a point where I didn't trust the hospital, didn't trust the meds, and stopped taking the meds. And then the delusions returned. And this is a painting I did of me on the ward, feeling very alone on the ward, except for these evil uglies that would attack in the middle of the night, come out of the various rooms and attack. And also around that time, around 2000, I came to an understanding after like 10 years in the system that my mother wouldn't want me to suffer. You know, that maybe it was time to forgive myself. If no one's going to forgive you, if your family aren't going to forgive you, if the system treats you like a piece of shit, which a lot of the professionals did, some of them couldn't get beyond treating this guy who did this horrible thing, and it was palpable. You could taste it, you could feel the disgust. I could feel the disgust that some of the professionals, some of the psychiatrists, some of the psychologists, some of the social workers had for me, just reading the chart and saying, oh, he did this. Oh, fuck this guy. Excuse my language, but that was the attitude. So I withdrew into myself and just kind of worked on forgiving myself. And somewhere along the way, my mother came to me. Somewhere along the way, you know, while I was medicated, while I was well stabilized. So I can't say it was a delusion. I can't say it was me just acting out in this kind of deluded, crazy, messianic state. But my mother came to me and said, it's time to come home. You know, you've done a lot of damage to your case. Sleeping with the staff, smoking marijuana again, just neglecting your medication, neglecting yourself. And she said, you know, I came to understanding that I had to get out of there and had dug such a deep hole for myself that it was almost impossible to get out by that time. If not for my faith, and hope, and recognizing that there was something to live for. And so I started keeping notes, started a journal, writing my memoir, and continued painting as a member of the Living Museum, which is an art program that it was a mixed blessing. It was bittersweet to be locked up potentially for the rest of my life, because with the insanity plea, it's a potential life sentence. You need 2 doctors to get in and 2 doctors to get out. And getting those 2 doctors to get in is difficult. And getting those 2 doctors to say you're sane and ready to leave is impossible. So mounting that case by selling some of my artwork through the back door and getting up enough money to hire a legal team and 2 doctors to agree that I was ready to leave was an insurmountable fate, but it happened. But also during this time, I often wondered what to reveal. You know, what was inside, like that other painting where there was emptiness. I was opening my heart again and saying, what's inside? What's inside? And I discovered that my mom was inside. You know, all this time, my mom was carrying me, like that famous parable of Jesus, you know, where you're on the beach and you see the 2 footsteps. You know, it's like, where were you all that time? And Jesus says, I was carrying you. And all that time, my mom was carrying me. All that time, my mom was shepherding me through this experience, 20 years. And it took 20 years, 10 years to mount a case, and with adjournments and various examinations by doctors. And I got before an honest judge who recognized that the hospital was very high-handed in their treatment of me and wasn't giving me the necessary privileges it took to go along the steps. Like somewhere 10 years previous, they just stopped working with me. And the judge recognized that, and without the necessary steps to get out that it takes for a case like mine, he let me go, or he let me go on an order of conditions, which isn't quite a discharge. And I still haven't been discharged yet, even though I've been out all this time, since 2009. It's not a discharge. It's an order of conditions where I can't leave the state, and I can't indulge in drugs, and I can't drink alcohol, and I can't get into any kind of violence or any kind of fights. But outside of that, I'm free to go. And they check up on me every 5 years. And every 5 years, I can petition for my discharge. And the last 2 times I've gone up, I haven't quite made the cut. But it's okay, because it's not as if I'd want to do anything that I can't do anyway. And in fact, when I came out with, here's an end note, learning to be at peace with myself and a friend to the younger me. I did this cutout thing for an art show. And here's me later on, embracing myself and being a friend to myself. And there's someone who's in the audience today who has that expression that I kind of borrow, being a friend to the younger self. And that's so important to do that, and forgive yourself. And during that time, I got a book published, The Hospital Always Wins, and on a book tour, which was in the contract to do a book tour, I ended up going to Montreal and to the Netherlands. And even though I'm not allowed to leave the New York State, when I petitioned to the powers that be, and they let me go. So it's not as if I ask, they won't let me go anywhere. So it's not as tight a living situation as you might expect or might assume. And I'm living with a partner who I met 28 years ago in the hospital. And this is Susan. And she was going through some hard times while she was there. And but she only stayed a month. But she kept coming back. She kept coming to visit every month, every week. And we solidified our union. We just stayed together, even through the hard times, even through my being a fool and thinking after when I got out, I've got a date. I've got to make up for lost time, and being a fool. But I had to do that to know that I had the best thing going right here. And now we live together in our apartment in Jackson Heights, and we have enough room to paint and to make music and to write. And we have 2 cats, 2 rescued cats, Skitsy and Cray Cray. So, and we're both going to be in the Outside Art Fair this coming March, where we both belong to. We both belong to Fountain House Gallery. So, I mean, it's really, we're falling ass backwards into good luck, like how I've been doing for the last 30 years. And I can only thank my mom and God for keeping an eye on me and keeping me on the straight and narrow. And even when I wandered, I didn't wander too far to not learn the lesson and get back on the right track again. So there you go, Dan.
All right, all right. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that incredible story, Issa. And we're going to open it up now. If the spirit moves you and you have a question for Issa, now is the time to unmute, because he's here and he's ready to answer you.
Hi, Issa, it's Jen. Can I ask
Hi,
you?
Jen. God bless. God, I'm so glad to finally talk to you. Hi, hi.
I'm seeing you face
Yes,
to face.
yes. I love your smile.
I love you. You are absolutely amazing, and I am so excited for you to get into the Outsider Fair. Oh my God,
Yeah, that's exciting.
that is huge. That's huge.
Exciting.
It's huge. You're gonna go. You're. It's on. It's on.
I feel that way. It's
you
like,
know that, right? You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna be able to afford to interview you for free anymore.
I want to thank you also for keeping Celia's memory alive. Thank you, Celia Brown, who some of you may or may not know, was the mother of the peer movement and a beautiful soul. And God bless her, she passed, and she was so quiet about it. And that's, I think, the way to do it. David Bowie did it that way too. Mm-hmm. And it's like, don't let people get too down or anticipate anything. Just kind of leave your legacy, you know? And she left such a profound legacy on the peer movement. And she's having a, a memorial today at 2:00 in Bronxville, New York.
Are you gonna go, Issa?
I'm gonna try and zoom in if I can.
Oh, she thought the world of you and your work.
I loved her.
We used to go, oh my God, what are we gonna do with Issa? You know, and so, I mean, thank you for everything that you did with Surviving Race, and that I hope that it continues. I hope that we can continue to share and show your work once you get in the outside affair. That's a big deal, Issa. Well, really is.
I'm trying
that's a dream of mine. It's like a fantasy, right?
It is kind of surreal. Yes, it is kind of, I mean, over the years, I've had like little 1 or 2 pieces in that were sold and then picked up by somebody else, and now they're being resold. So but this is the first time I've ever been actually represented by a gallery there. So that's why it's kind of special. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you're doing, and
I see you too.
So open and honest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, can I say something?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Charlie, and I get a lot of support from the spiritual community that I belong to. I'm wondering if you have anything like that in your life.
I don't have a community outside of a sprinkling of friends who are spiritual and are grounded and are rooted. And I look to them every once in a while to kind of give me the food that I need to kind of keep going on. Because as you know, it's not hip. God is not a hip thing to say. Jesus and God, it's not hip. It's not hip. And some people turn off immediately. Say, oh, Jesus freak, can't listen to him. Oh, here we go. And so it's like you have to pick your spots, and you've got to be very judicious about how you introduce your spiritual life into the mainstream, So there's a sprinkling of people who I look like. Dan, for instance. I love how when he sends an email, he'll leave in the bottom of the email a little quote that's just the right thing to warm your heart and fortify your spiritual soul and go on till the next bit of food. It's like a journey we're all on, and it's like we need breadcrumbs along the way, and Dan's good for those breadcrumbs, and there are other people I know who are good for just those little bits of fruit, those Samaritans who'll give you just a little bit of respite until the next time, So that's kind of how I treat it. I don't belong, yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I don't belong to a spiritual community. Maybe this will be my community. Maybe the spirituality group will be my community. Because Gail Bluebird, I've been a friend of hers on Facebook for almost several years. I've never met her. I don't know where she lives, but this could be the community I'll belong to.
And the other thing is, I once actually traveled to New York to go to an outsider art fair. So maybe I could do that again if someone tells me when and where this is.
It will be March 2nd to 5th. It's in 2 weeks. I'll put it in the chat. I got it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Issa, are they going to include your work overseas in the Milan show as well?
I'm not sure. It depends on whether Fountain House Gallery is going to do the Milan, the Paris show, and I think they're just doing the New York show. But
Wow.
they've got a pretty good sized booth.
By the way, I'd like to say hi to Gail too. I've been in a couple of music performances that she organized, and it's good to see you here again, Gail. And last week I think you were here too. I was there for part of that too.
This is Bluebird here, and I am honored to be here. And Issa, I've been following you. I visited the Living Art Museum at one time where I saw a lot of your art.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and I did not know your story. It needs to be known and heard by more people. And I feel like I'm crying in a way because I'm not actually crying, but I'm crying. Because your story is so moving and how you used your art. I'm sort of hanging in there with my art. I didn't know that you read my poetry, but thank you for that.
Yes.
And so I'm sort of doing what a lot of us are doing right now, which is writing our memoirs, putting my poetry together. I just turned 80 years old. I think you're younger than that, Issa. I know you are.
A little bit, but I love and respect my elders. God bless you. God bless you. God bless you. I mean.
Well, anyway, I don't want to take up a lot of time, but perhaps we can get together in some way later on. And I just say thank you. And also thank you to Dan for doing this. It's just an amazing work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You're welcome, Bluebird. And she mentioned memoir writing, and we're offering a free memoir writing seminar on Zoom. If you're interested, put your email in the chat and I'll send you more information. All right, let's keep on going.
I love your dog.
Hi, Issa. I have a question.
Yes, dear. Mary, hi.
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for sharing that brave story. I'm super inspired by you. And I am opening up a mental health resource center in my home this summer. And I'm in Western New York, near Buffalo. So if you ever want to come, please visit. Encourage that. But I'm wondering if you have any of your art for sale online or anywhere. I would love to have that piece when your mother came to visit you.
Oh, the blue angel.
Yes, it's so moving now that I know the backstory.
Yes, yes. Wouldn't you know, I sold that about a month or so ago to a friend who's also a peer. But let me put. I could put something in the chat where you could purchase, stuff. But yeah, I'm sorry I didn't sell that piece. But thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And I will also get a copy of your book and keep that in my resource library for people.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. Beautiful listening to you today.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, Mary.
Issa?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, this is Gene Halton.
I remember you. Yes.
Yeah,
the harp player. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I want to thank Gio, who's on the list here, for sending me an email this morning, and I was able just to get on time for this. And I just want to thank you so much. This was so beautifully spoken, said, and your story in the images that you've done too is, I've seen your work before, but these images today also just the beauty of that way that you can find yourself in the art and the art can find you as well as part of the broader process. It's just really inspiring.
Thank you. I mean, most of the paintings I showed here aren't really stuff that I show too much, because it's almost seems a little too personal. And sometimes with very personal work, it doesn't translate. You sometimes feel a little too exposed, or some people would not quite accept or whatever. So a lot of the stuff I showed, I've shown to too many people. And that's always the difficulty, how much to reveal. You write songs, or you're a musician, so it's like so much of it is the poetry of it. To be able to touch as many people as possible through the poetry while still bearing your soul. And that's a delicate balance, And sometimes you may opt to go broader in deference to being so naked, because it's easier, of course, but when you do get naked, or when you do kind of bare yourself, it feels good, but it's scary too,
And that's also where the source is.
Yeah.
Where the creative fountain in that kind of scary, vulnerable zone too. That's also where you're just immersed in it, and
yes.
it can body forth the vision.
Yes. Yeah. Now I've been doing since this whole thing happened with my mom. I've been constantly trying. I look at my body of work as all pieces of a puzzle. They all fit together. And I've given away and sold some major pieces to that puzzle, but I still look at them as all interconnecting pieces that will tell a grander story, that maybe when it's time for me to leave, I'll be able to look at it and go, yes, that makes sense there, and that's why that happened. And and there's my brother, and just little things that kind of interconnect, so. That's kind of how I look at my art, as all just parts of a whole that I'm still creating the puzzle. I haven't lived the puzzle yet. So as I live it, I will create another piece, and it's all so. Well, thank you, Gene. It's so good to see you.
You're welcome. Great to see you.
I really enjoyed playing with you. I'm a dilettante, as you probably recognize when we played. I'm just a blues pop guy, and blues pop is 4 chords and the truth sometimes. But but playing with you and hearing your harp skills was just wonderful. So thank you. Keep playing.
Well, thanks so much. That was a wonderful afternoon. Just playing there.
You said you do music. What instrument, or what do you use for your music?
I play a lot of things very badly. My dad was a multi-instrumentalist. He played primarily bass guitar, but he collected instruments. So growing up in the house, we had a piano, an upright piano, and guitars and horns and a lot of percussion instruments. And I always played around with them, but never formally learned. And in the 80s, before I got sick, I entertained dreams of being a pop singer, because that was hip at the time. But I had nothing to say. And it wasn't until what happened with my mom happened that I ended up in a mental hospital. And someone gave me a guitar. I finally had something to say. I finally had inspiration for songs. Just being in a mental hospital, that's a whole album right there. And my girlfriend's coming from Jackson Heights on a train and a bus every day to come visit me. That's blues. My mom, the whole thing with my mom's writing songs from that perspective. But I acquired, after a while, a 16-track digital recorder, which allowed me to put down multiple tracks. So I would put a drum track, a percussion track, a bass track, and it was all rudimentary. It was all like bubblegum blues, I call it, because it was blues, but its inspiration was I grew up listening to bubblegum pop, the Beatles, and worse, So it was like bubblegum blues, but it's my music. It is what it is.
Hey,
And
Issa,
yeah.
it is possible that I could share like, or you could share your screen and like open up one of your songs, which is on YouTube. You want to do that? It's like only a couple minutes long, right?
Only a couple. Do you have something? Do you want to pick something? I would.
Okay, I'll pick some. All right. Let me see what I can do.
This is going to be embarrassing. Yeah, it's better you pick something so I don't have to choose because.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to YouTube. And I'll just put Issa Ibrahim.
No, not with an N.
Don't worry, it'll correct me.
It'll correct.
How about
welcome to the rest of your life. I wrote that just as I got out of the hospital.
Welcome to the rest of your life. Time for you to close the door on everything you knew before. It was a hell of a fight. Welcome back, but don't forget the worst hasn't happened yet. You're expected to make a living. You're expected to keep on giving and try to survive. Welcome to the rest of your life. Everyone's got something to prove. Running around making plans while time is slipping through their hands. Don't let that happen to you. You should know you must be smarter cause you nurse a broken heart. Things are gonna be so demanding. You won't get much understanding. Forget the 9 to 5. Welcome to the rest of your life. Different point of view. They don't have a clue. You got things to do. Just relax and take your time, do you? Welcome to the rest of your life. When it isn't such a struggle, then it can be such a puzzle. And try as you might, people will still put you down. That doesn't mean you have to frown. Keep on smiling although they hate it. Life can be so complicated, but your future's so bright. Welcome to the rest of your life. Welcome to the rest of your life. Welcome to the rest of your life. Welcome to the rest of your Welcome to the rest of your Welcome to the rest of your
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank
It's
you.
got a hook. I like it.
Awesome.
Kind of catchy. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I wrote that in Susan, my partner's first apartment. That she moved out of her family home and moved in with a roommate. And she wasn't happy with the roommate. As you know, the roommate situation with mentally ill can be kind of problematic. Finding the right match, and that wasn't a good match for her. So I spent a lot of time there with her, just kind of keeping her calm and keeping her company. And I got a taste in her apartment of what it would be like in my own apartment or an apartment with her, just as I got out of the hospital. And it was a new life for me after being locked up. So the songs kind of came out from there. So.
I enjoyed the art and the music. I like how you put that all together.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like the blooming of the flower.
I'm wondering if your family ever reconciled with you.
Good question. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. In fact, the main reason I wrote my memoir, the main reason, perhaps the only reason, was to let my family and my community know what happened in no uncertain terms. I spared no detail. And I wanted them to know that it wasn't a willful act, that it wasn't for money, it wasn't for any kind of crazy anything other than just mental illness. I wanted them to understand that I was mentally ill and that something just really crazy had happened. But they just didn't accept that. And the fact, what hurts them the most, I think, is the fact that I'm falling ass backwards into success, you know? And some of them have made it clear that they want a piece of that, or he did this so many years ago, now he's making so much money, even though I'm not making any money. But there, on the internet, everybody's a star. You know what I mean? If you would just look at what's on the internet, you think everybody has a beautiful life and they're traveling the world. And so they just assume what they see is what's a reality, when really it's just people putting their best foot forward. And no one's putting their real life on the internet. I'm miserable. You know, I'm miserable. I'm depressed. I'm mentally ill. No one's so. They just assume that I'm making shitloads of money, and so they.
Well, I'm sorry. You get
it hurts. And one brother in particular has made it his. This is getting very personal, but I'll share it with you. He's even threatened my girlfriend, threatened me. You know, he's a bit unhinged himself. You know. It became clearer as time progressed that I wasn't the only person with mental illness in the family. Let me just say that. You know what I mean? It's become clearer. And so he's undiagnosed and untreated and not in therapy and hasn't had any grief counseling or therapy. So he's free to kind of roam and be difficult and almost dangerous. So that's something that my girlfriend and I have to kind of deal with on a somewhat daily basis, you know. But the main reason I wrote the book was that they could get a hold of it and understand a little bit more what it's like to be mentally ill and what it's like to lose your mind and do something that you would never in a million years, to do the unimaginable.
So Issa, what has the response been to your first book, and are you getting a response to your second book?
The second book, The Cosmic Knockout. Well, the first book has been very well received. It was on Oprah's best book of the summer in 2016. You know, so Oprah got notice of it, and it was well received in a moderate sense. You know, it wasn't a major, didn't blow the doors out of anything. And it also came out at a time when the publishing world was kind of changing and shifting and turning into a very strange beast. It's virtually impossible to get anything published nowadays. You have to be Kim Kardashian to get something published and get a decent advance. So, you know, that's kind of how that went. And this new book I wrote, The Cosmic Knockout, I'm self-publishing that right now in the hopes that, much like with the first book, it's good for all you memoir writers. Here's a tip. Get into a writing program, an online writing program, where you can upload get it into the best shape you can get it, edit it to as best as you can get it in, the shape you can get it in, and get a physical copy of your book. self-publish so that you can pass it around. Make 5 copies, 10 copies. 10 might be too much. It might be a little costly, but even 5 copies. Make 5 copies. Get it published. Get a physical copy, and just carry around a copy with you everywhere you go, because you'll never know who you'll bump into who's a literary agent in publishing or knows somebody in that arena, and just give it to them and say, look, here's my story. Have an elevator pitch. I was locked up for X amount of years, or I went through this, and here's my story. I wrote it, and I think you might be interested in it. And pass that book along. And that's how my first book got published. I had a preview copy, and I'd pass it around, and it wound up in the hands of someone who read it and said, I like your story, and we were thinking of getting a ghostwriter until I read your writing and discovered you can write this book. So we're going to let you write your own story, which, so that's probably the best advice I could offer to anyone, because I did hear someone mention that they were thinking of writing their memoirs. Write them, get them on a document, on a Word document, and then transfer that Word document through Blurb or lulu.com or blurb.com and transfer it onto an actual book. You can do it, and it's very simple. It's, just take your time, have a physical copy, and pass it around. And you just never know how that could lead to an actual published memoir.
All right. Now we have like 18 people, 18 survivors here.
Yes.
18 spirituality survivors. And I would like to hear from people who have not spoken, and give yourself a chance. If you haven't spoken yet, if you have spoken, please take a step back. And if you haven't spoken, please step up. And now is your time to shine. And we'd love to hear from you. I know there's thoughts percolating. I know it, because the thoughts I'm having are definitely not original. They're your thoughts. My thoughts are your thoughts, your thoughts. Okay, we got some hands raised. Let's go to Sandy Brower.
I loved your story. Thanks for sharing that. That couldn't be easy for you to share. And congratulations on your books. And when is your art show going to be at Fountain House Gallery so I can go see it? Oh, and I loved your song.
Oh, thank you. Since you're familiar with Fountain House Gallery, there's a show up right now called Mushrooms.
I know about that.
I have a piece in that show that honors my mom. It's called My Mom Danced to XTC. I used to play this new wave and pop rock in my room, and my mom would get high. It's all about getting high and mushrooms and stuff. And my mom would get high on marijuana and come in dancing to my music. And so it was like we melded, the generations kind of clashed and came together when she come in and danced to the music I'd play. And so there's a piece there called My Mom Danced to XTC, which is in that show. So 48th Street and 9th Avenue, I'll put that in there.
No, I know where that is.
Okay.
I know where that is. I bought a piece from somebody.
Sandy, you got anything else for Issa?
No, that was it.
All right. Now we got Catherine Fazio.
Hi, it's just an honor to hear your story. I've been to that show. I actually sold a piece or two at the gallery at one point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and but I haven't been there painting for a while. But I will say that I saw the show, but seeing your face and hearing your story, it brings it to a whole different level. So when I see you that show again, just to know the story, and you're so talented and so verbal, and your mediums are so important to models younger than you, and it's great that you had that kindness to your younger self. Isn't that true that we have to do that, right, when nobody else will do it?
Yes, I know.
And isn't it true that it's unfortunately unfortunate sometimes that our face is like a solar plate for someone else's, not knowing about their own mental health issues, or just throwing all the mud onto one person's face in the family. And the way you use art is just so important. I congratulate you. I have so much respect. I and of course, when I go to the gallery, I see it in a whole different light because I see your footsteps. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Catherine. And come back to the gallery. Come back. Come do more work. Do more work.
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
How about you, Tammy?
Hi, hi, Issa, everybody. I just stumbled across the post for this Zoom like 5 minutes before it started, and I had just reached out on Facebook the day before, looking for more support, more meeting more people that are in the, I don't know, in my vibe. And so I was really excited to see this and felt compelled to come. And I'm really moved by your story, Issa. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm no stranger to psychotic breaks or mental hospitals. And I'm also an artist. And so this is really great to be here. The last year, really, I've been working on, my art has been my life. And I've been really writing what I want my life to look like. And I moved to an eco village and then got an RV, and I'm learning how to live off grid and all these things. I've got all these ideas percolating, but my life right now is, learning how to install an inverter for my solar panels. So I look forward to creating in a different way once I have my life written more. But thank you so much. And I hope that this is the beginning of I don't know, a new support system and people for me. So thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. And if I could just say, Dan, before you go on, thank you, Tammy. And I love that, writing your life, writing what your life will be like. I think that's beautiful. That's like there are a lot of songs, painting my masterpiece, painting your life, writing your life, being the author of your own destiny almost.
Yes.
And being in nature, getting away from the city. God bless you. God bless you. Being in nature. I know. That's just like the smartest move, because the city's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. And we're all just going to be in a pressure cooker, and we're all going to just go insane, all of us at some point.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
You've really
people
done
out of touch with their souls. And
yes.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to write a book about, I have several books started, but I'm hoping to write a book about like bridging, what is the bridge moving from suburbia to, living off grid in a way that now I only have to work part-time to support myself, which frees me for other things that make my soul sing.
Oh, God bless. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How about you, Stan?
I just couldn't stay totally shut up. Had to add my 2 cents. Thank you, Issa, for sharing your story. And I don't know, for me, it's always been people's stories, hearing people's stories, where I've learned. I love biographies, I love stories. I feel, we're just talking about writing our stories. I feel like every day I am writing my story as I go. I'm writing it in my head, but I'm not recording it. I'm not, and I think I should be. We've all got a story. I became really fascinated with independent little movies that describe people's trajectories and dealing with hardships and mental health issues in their lives, and it occurred to me that every person I meet has a story, has a movie in them. But you're very open, and I really appreciate how you've been able to tell this story. I was curious, I'm in the middle of Canada. I'm in a city called Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, yes.
Winnipeg. Yeah, you know it. Wow.
I had family in Toronto. Yeah, so that's a long ways away. But Winnipeg is more like in the center of Canada, correct?
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the prairies. We're a few miles
right.
away from the longitudinal center of the country.
Right.
It's cold here. It's prairies.
Yes.
You know, it's not unlike North Dakota and you know, weather. So, anyways, I've been working here in a number of different services. I have my own lived experience. My mom in the 60s and 67, she wound up at Kankakee State Hospital in Chicago. And I had her committed there because I was concerned for her safety and ours as well. When I was a kid, she, in her, I don't know, altered states, you know, because I'm really having problems myself talking now about mental illness. These were all just different states of experience, you know. Whatever happened was real for you in that moment, and you're acting within that reality that was real to you. So anyways, but she had, I guess, at few points talked about ending her life because it was so hard, and it was hard. She had voices that constantly told her what a piece of shit she was, and now she's dead. And she was going to take my brother and me with her because she didn't feel like it was, you know, she should leave us in this world. So we were kids, you know, so figuring this stuff out. I'm 73 now. I saw Jimi Hendrix in 1968.
Wow.
And I still remember, even though I was stoned on acid and pretty wasted, but I still remember that experience. Anyways, there was a couple of things. One was I've come to work with a number of men here because I came to work in kind of social services after a lifetime doing photography. Because of my volunteering in mental health, suddenly I started being offered jobs. So I wound up working with 3 different individuals who had taken their lives in the context of an altered state. In 2 cases, it was their dads. And in another case, it was Vince Lee, who made the headlines in 2008 as the Greyhound killer, the Greyhound bus killer. He stabbed to death a young man who was sitting next to him at the back of a Greyhound bus in the wee morning hours, and someday in July 2008. He was pretty messed up. He was on a mission. He was traveling from Edmonton to Toronto. He was on some sort of a mission, which is all familiar territory. And but he thought that the devil Beelzebub was beside him and was a threat. And he stabbed him, and he ended up cutting him open, moving his heart. And so it became a really grisly headline story all over the world. He received his full discharge actually after 10 years in 2018. He received a full discharge. I got to know and work with him. He was never able to talk about that experience with me, and I'm sure he talked about it with other people, but he was very, very quiet, very enclosed. And he went on, he changed his name, which brings me to something else, is that history that you sort of in your, that one piece of art there, about the headlines and how that kind of follows you. And I also work with other people who have been in the criminal system, and they have even more of a history because it's searchable and it affects their lives. But I'm wondering how today you don't walk around all paranoid that somebody's going to recognize you or anything like that.
No. I've learned to integrate it into my life and use it as a teaching tool. It's very much a part of my life. I made the decision to not run from it because I'd be running forever. I'd never hide, I'd never get away from it. And it would drive me crazy. And it would probably drive me to kill myself or God knows what, you know? So I learned to integrate it into my life, write a book about it, and use it as a teaching tool. In instances like these, I just went back to my old high school and talked to some kids who were taking a forensics and art class, and just kind of to get to the kids, you know, who are now just flirting with drugs or flirting with and going through their own mental illness, you know. So I there's something that a friend of mine said, that if you, what did he say? If you give it away, they can't take it from you.
Right.
If you give it away, they can't take it from you. So I've learned to just kind of like not have it be this overhang or this thing like that picture where I'm running from my headlining, running from my past, and running from this horrible thing in my life. It weighs on my soul, yes, mainly because my family have disowned me and are still actively after me whenever they do resurface. But I've made friends since then. I have a new chosen family, some of whom are on this Zoom meeting. I have a chosen family of friends and lovers and family who support me and know me better than my family do now. So I don't let it kind of haunt me any more than it normally would. You know, and this is, I can never forget about it, but I use it as fuel. I use it, you know.
Yeah, that's a big thing to live with. I find it somewhat unimaginable, and I wondered. And these other gentlemen who I'd mentioned, you know, they each found their own way of dealing with it, of moving forward, because somehow we have to move forward. You're here. And bless you for turning it into something good, you know, for something that's positive and bring whatever else we have, you know, so many of us have these gifts and these strengths, you know, that were given to us in our birth. And
that you don't know until it's called upon. And you don't know you have these gifts until you're in the moment and it marshals itself, or it takes time and you realize, my God, I'm surviving this, you know?
Yeah.
You're surviving the unimaginable somehow. Yeah.
And I don't know if you found this, but it's somehow brought to you if you keep your eyes open and keep moving forward. It's not that you seek out, you know, this attention or this fame or anything else, but whatever it is that's meant to be is offered to you, and then it's up to you to move with it. Thank you very much. That was really interesting. I'm really glad I joined this morning.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Now, Aisha, you are muted, unmuted, muted, unmuted. What's going on? What's on your mind, Aisha?
Hold on. Sorry. I'm just thinking about learning more about Issa and his memoir. I thought it was really interesting. For college, I wrote a 18-page memoir when I graduated from college, and it was a creative writing program. And the first class I took in college that I aced, it was an advanced memoir writing workshop, and I had taken the regular workshop first. I just think it's great that Issa writes about his life. I think it gives even a mentally ill person that doesn't otherwise have any peers to draw from, might go from reading his memoir and getting kind of glimpse into his life, and may consider doing a little writing of their own. When I saw the book, it said 2016 was the year. I graduated from college the year before, 2015. But the thing that pulled my GPA up was an A in an advanced memoir writing workshop in college. I find writing about my life helps me a lot. I even have my own memoir that's 226 pages that's never been published. And I'm interested in avenues where I can send it somewhere, and somebody that's a part of a mental health organization or peer journal, something that can, if I send my memoir to them, they can like edit it and help me publish it.
You know, there should be a resource like that. And I'm sure that someone's going to start it. I'm sure that someone, if they haven't already and we just don't know about it, but there should be a resource like that, because there are a lot of stories out there, and a lot of people like yourself and myself and others who are writing good stuff. And even if it's, you know, or stuff that through an editor could be really brought to, like I said, my method was just to have it kind of put together in the best form you can have it and walk around with it, because you just never know who you're going to meet. If you go into the city one day and you're in an elevator, the old elevator pitch. I know it sounds corny, but it happened. people you bump into. But I don't know of any, but Dan has someone who's teaching a memoir writing class. I think it's in the chat.
Yeah, Aisha, I'll send you information about the memoir writing class. And Andy Chalif is his name, and he wrote several books, but one of them was a memoir, what was called The Last Letter. I read it. It was really powerful. And he's offering this free seminar. So I will give you that information. And whoever else wants to be part of that, it's free on Zoom. It's 90 minutes. You can put your email in the chat. Now, thank you, Aisha. Andrew, can I call you out, Andrew? Is something percolating in that mind of yours, Andrew?
So yes, I noticed at the beginning of your music video, you had Issa Ibrahim surviving schizophrenia.
Yes.
So I was wondering, was that at the beginning because it's like something you're trying to put behind you, or did it stick with you, or did you like the word surviving?
It was just kind of like, I also had the DSM-4,
Yeah,
I think I just kind of like, very good, you caught that. Putting psychiatry and some of the dogma of psychiatry behind me and embracing something else, spirituality, personal fortitude, because psychiatry failed a lot of people, and psychiatry wasn't really a friend to me, even though I'm very well medicated. I'm not going to play down the fact that I get a shot every month, and it's allowed me to achieve a lot of things I've achieved. But at the same time, I've been on medications that have been horrific. And I know other people that just are going through hell. I'm working with somebody right now as a peer counselor. I'm working with somebody who is just going through hell in the system. So, but yeah, I'm glad you noticed that, because it's an ongoing struggle.
It is.
It's an ongoing struggle. It may be the forever struggle until they get something better going.
Maybe a forever struggle.
It could be our forever struggle. And I love your cat, by the way. I love
Thank you. No, medication, I take it. I know I need it. Without the medication, I can't sleep at night. I get nervous, But actually, when I was in the hospital, I was a big reader. I actually noticed one of my treatment plans said I shouldn't be reading more than 2 hours a day. That was part of their treatment. I was reading too much. But then one of the doctors gave me that book, Surviving Schizophrenia, and he insisted I read it. And there was one thing I liked about it, actually, which was at one point in the book, he said something about how it's a common delusion that people believe they have a microchip implanted in them. And I thought I had microchip implanted on me. So it was something I could relate to, and I'd be able to say, oh my God, because I didn't think I had schizophrenia. But for the first time, I found someone who said something I could relate to, and for the future and stuff. But yeah, since then, Tori's been doing some pretty shady stuff recently. He's trying to medicate people in the homeless, mentally ill.
Yes.
Actually, where I live, there is a man who I've always been giving money to, who clearly suffers from psychosis. Whenever I see him, he's talking to himself for hours, he's like screaming. People call him like, he's such an asshole. And I'm like, no, he's not an asshole. And I bought him some food and stuff. But yeah, 3 days ago, I was coming home from work and the cops were just picking them up. And I bet it was probably just that whole effilatory movement of taking these people and, taking them off the streets and forcing them into treatment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
well,
I mean,
that's very current right now with our mayor. Are you in New York?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, that's Mayor Adams and Tory, and he's getting a lot of support from all these psychiatrists, saying, yeah, let's medicate them, let's take them off the streets, And I came from Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, and there was a period when there were only like 230 inpatients. I mean, they whittled it down to virtually nothing. And now they're opening up the wards again, opening up the old buildings again. They're getting ready for a major re-lockdown.
Yeah, mass incarceration. But I like that thought. Just put that behind us, move forward, and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. We have 10 minutes left, so the countdown is begun. Now, Kira, you have your hand patiently raised. Go ahead.
Hi, Issa, if you remember me.
Hi, Kira.
How you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
Okay, I just first I wanted to say that about talking about lifelong struggle. I mean, I think that hi Sue. I think that that something that, I don't know, it's just one of the pieces of the many pieces of the puzzle of life. Like I started to think that it wasn't that long ago that humans' purpose for existence was to survive and struggle. That sort of helped me because nowadays I think so many of us feel like we're falling short, but if I sort of try to readjust it to see that I'm that struggling and surviving is actually probably how we're really hardwired. But I also wanted to tell the story of you. I think it's interesting. I don't know if anybody else will think it's interesting, but back in the 90s, I always knew something was wrong with me, but I didn't really know exactly how. And I was a regular mental health counselor, and I was working in a day center, and I took the participants to the Living Museum in Creedmoor. And a young man was giving us a tour, and I thought, wow, this guy he's an amazing psychiatrist. He's so smart. He's so sensitive and everything, just all these, great things. And then toward the end of the tour, he said, and I have schizophrenia. And it just, at that point, I just was not in touch with what mental health issues really were. It made such an impression on me, and such an impression on me that I remembered this person for decades. And then one day I was in a gathering, and here was this person. It was kind of amazing. So
what was the name of that psychiatrist who had schizophrenia?
Dr. Ibrahim. It was Issa.
Oh.
It was me.
Oh, okay.
No, thank you, Kira. Thank you so much. God bless. God bless. I for many years I gave the tour at the Living Museum, and if anyone hasn't been there, you should go. It's on the grounds of Creedmoor Psychiatric Center, and it's probably like the premier art space for the art of the mentally ill. And I've got a lot of work there, and there are a lot of other artists who are just growing in leaps and bounds. And it's an amazing space, and it will change your perceptions of what the mentally ill are capable of, or for lack of a better word. I hate to use that term, mentally ill. I even saw someone in the chat say, I wonder if anyone has found an alternative to the term mental illness, because it does sound a bit pejorative, or so we've got to find a better way to classify ourselves, and to live with something better than what other people want for us.
Now, Amanda, are you there, Amanda? Are you listening?
I ran away.
Oh, okay, you ran away then, I guess. How you doing, Amanda? What's going on?
I'm listening, and I'm listening with my eyes resting, which is why I was off a video, because I get to go to Buffalo Psychiatric at 7:45 to work. Let's see, Thursday into Friday, I believe. I worked 16-hour shift. And then yesterday, which was my Saturday, I had the day off. So tonight I go in for my Sunday shift. I'm still trying to get used to my schedule because it's confusing, but so tonight I go in from 7:45 to either 7:45 or 11:45, and then tomorrow I go in from 11:45 to 7:45 or later, depending on whether or not I get mandated. So I get to I get to see it from the other side and try to like every time I go and do the rounds, I think of what it must be like for the people to have to hear the sound of the door closed every time I go from one side to the other and have to ask for water, not be able to have snacks whenever they want to, not being able to eat or drink or do go to their rooms whenever they want to. So it's interesting to me. And then I also like I relate to this woman who bangs her head and screams and hollers and I want to learn her language so I can understand her better because she speaks Dali and so nobody really can talk to her because only the few words that she knows in English. So I'd like to be able to learn her language and talk to her and so she feels like somebody cares enough to actually want to communicate with her other than just the words that motions or whatever, you know, because a lot of people treat her poorly and it frustrates me because I want her to have more than she has. I want her to be able to be with her family. I want her to feel like a person and not just somebody that is treated like a nuisance every day because she wants her medicine or she wants water and she's pacing and she's screaming and she's hollering and she's banging her head and she's hitting herself and she's hitting the wall. And I want so much more for them, and I'm actually reaching her and other people and it's nice, but I want more for them, you know. I want to be able to reach in and magically like make them better.
Yeah. It's that empathy that God bless you have it, you know, that empathy, and it's that empathy that we all need, you know, for other people and ourselves and society. I mean, but that empathy is very important. It's kind of lacking nowadays, I've noticed, and thank you for that, because you need to have that ability to see yourself and others, or just to see someone else's pain and wanna cradle it, or a balm for the pain, you know, just to soothe it just a little bit. That empathy is missing.
Issa, Amanda is a peer worker. Now at Creedmoor, when you were at Creedmoor as a patient, were you there long enough to see an influx of the peer workers?
I did. I became a peer worker, and I still do peer work in a truncated fashion. I'm, you know, but yeah, I did see in the 20 years I was there a change from the snake pit to an almost functioning hospital.
Well, right now I'm mental health therapy aide, but I'm wondering if I should contact the peer. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do to be able to reach my goals, because I did talk to the peer and he talked to me about reaching out to the peer and his boss and becoming a peer. I also want to reach out to the domestic violence liaison. I want to try to finish my mental health, become a mental health therapist, because I was close to getting my master's and failed. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to figure out what to do to be able to help people more than just sit in. Well, I think it's effective to actually be there, because a lot of the doctors and counselors and all of that do not, they spend 5 minutes on the floor. So I am actually interacting with them and helping them as a mental health therapy aide, and I'm there with them. I'm there with them for 12 to 16 hours a day, almost like 3 to 4 days a week. So I am there with them, but I'm wondering if there's more that I can do for them and with them and all of that. So
I'll tell you, having spent, let me just say this, Dan, sometimes the most help I've gotten is from a therapy aide, someone who cares and is there to just listen and share their heart with you, even though there are certain boundaries you're not supposed to cross, but just have someone listen and be compassionate and empathetic. Sometimes that's all that's necessary. Just be there, be present. But anyway, Dan, you go ahead.
All right. Well, Amanda, please come next week, and we'll talk during the week, you and I, and maybe there's some resources and some people I can connect you with. Now this is, we're running a little over, we're 2 minutes over. So I want to thank everyone for coming. And Issa, could you close us out with a couple of minutes of your final parting thoughts?
Yes. Wow. Breathe. Breathe. You know, feel the warmth and the heart of others. You know, everyone's got a heart. Some people's hearts are a little crusted over and a little closed in, but everyone's got a heart. Try to touch that heart with your own heart. Always keep your heart warm. Keep your heart beating. Keep your heart warm. Keep your heart open. Love openly. You know, even that guy who steps on your toe and keeps walking, or even looks back and challenges you, give him love because he's hurting. You know, and just breathe, and just be open, because that's what will help you. Just be open and be. I know this may sound corny, but I'm going to run the risk and say it. If you're ever at doubt, this is going to be corny. What would Jesus do? You think, what would, you know, what's the most godlike or the most perfect way to love someone?